The clinking of expensive wine glasses filled the air at Le Jardin, my brother David's favorite restaurant for showing off his wealth. I sat at the far end of the table, watching him hold court among our family members, his Rolex catching the light with every grandiose gesture. And then, he boomed, I closed the Henderson deal right there in my corner office. 47th floor, overlooking the entire city. He turned his attention to me, his smile dripping with false concern. How's your workspace, Sarah? Still in that tiny office at the university? Our parents exchanged knowing looks. David had always been their golden child, Harvard MBA, fast-tracked to partnership at Sterling and Brooks Investment, marriage to Jessica, the perfect socialite wife. Meanwhile, I'd chosen academia, much to their perpetual disappointment. The office suits my needs, I replied quietly, taking a sip of water. What David didn't know was that my tiny office was just for show. My real work happened in the executive suite of the business school's new wing, the one named after me, though I'd donated anonymously. Oh, come on, David laughed, his voice carrying across the restaurant. It's barely bigger than a closet. Jessica, darling, remember when you visited Sarah's office last year? Didn't you say it reminded you of your household staff's break room? Jessica, immaculate in her Chanel suit, tittered politely. Well, it was cozy. She checked her perfect manicure, a nervous habit I'd noticed whenever she felt uncomfortable. But speaking of business school, I have some exciting news. I've decided to pursue my MBA. The table erupted in congratulations. David beamed proudly. That's right. My brilliant wife got accepted into Riverside Business School's executive program. Top ranked in the country. I carefully set down my fork, keeping my face neutral. Riverside Business School. My business school. Where I wasn't just a professor, but the youngest department head in the school's history. Where my research had revolutionized modern business theory. Where I'd quietly amassed a fortune through strategic investments and consulting, all while maintaining my humble professor facade. How wonderful, our mother gushed. When do you start, dear? Tonight, actually. Jessica smiled. My first class is Advanced Business Strategy at 7 p.m. I'm a bit nervous. They say the professor is quite demanding. Dr. Mitchell or something. I checked my watch, 6:15 p.m. Perfect timing. Dr. Mitchell? David scoffed. Probably some dusty old academic who's never seen the inside of a real boardroom. Jessica, darling, just remember what I've taught you about actual business. Our father nodded sagely. David's right. Theory is one thing, but real business happens in corner offices, not classrooms. I stood up, smoothing my deliberately modest blazer. Excuse me, I have a prior commitment this evening. Oh. David smirked. Papers to grade in your tiny office? Something like that, I smiled, dropping enough cash to cover my portion of the bill. Jessica, don't be late for class. First impressions matter. She nodded absently, already absorbed in her phone. David launched into another story about his latest deal, and our parents leaned in eagerly. None of them noticed me leaving, just as none of them had noticed my quiet accumulation of power over the years. In my car, a modest Toyota I drove to maintain appearances, I changed into my teaching outfit. A perfectly tailored Armani suit hidden under an unassuming cardigan. My tiny office contained a complete wardrobe for occasions like this. The drive to Riverside took 15 minutes. I entered through the faculty entrance, nodding to security guards who straightened respectfully as I passed. The Mitchell School of Business, named after my grandmother, who'd secretly funded my education against my parents' wishes, gleamed with state-of-the-art technology and modern architecture. In my executive suite, I reviewed the class roster one final time. Jessica Brooks, front and center on the list. My secretary knocked softly. Dr. Mitchell? The board members would like to confirm tomorrow's endowment meeting. And the Goldman Sachs partners are still waiting for your decision on their consulting offer. Tell the board I'll be there. As for Goldman, I smiled, thinking of David's endless bragging about his finance connections. Let them wait another week. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a class to teach. I gathered my materials and headed to Lecture Hall A, the same hall where I'd first dreamed of becoming more than just David's quiet sister. Students were already filing in, their excited chatter filling the space. At precisely 6:55 p.m., Jessica rushed in, looking flustered but immaculate. She took a seat in the front row, smoothing her designer skirt and arranging her luxury leather notebook just so. At 7 p.m. sharp, I entered through the side door, letting my cardigan slip just enough to reveal the Armani beneath. The room fell silent. "Good evening," I said clearly, watching Jessica's eyes widen in recognition. "Welcome to Advanced Business Strategy. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, department head and your professor for this semester." Jessica's perfect French manicure clattered against her desk as her phone slipped from her fingers. The color drained from Jessica's perfectly made-up face as I began my opening lecture. Her manicured hands trembled as she tried to take notes, her Mont Blanc pen making uncharacteristically messy scrawls across her premium leather notebook. "Business strategy isn't about corner offices or closing deals over expensive wines," I stated, deliberately echoing David's earlier boasts. "It's about understanding market dynamics, recognizing patterns, and most importantly," I paused, meeting Jessica's shocked gaze, knowing that true power often operates quietly behind the scenes. For the next 2 hours, I commanded the lecture hall with the authority that came from years of success both in academia and in the business world. My consulting firm, Mitchell Strategy Group, had quietly shaped policies for Fortune 500 companies. My investment portfolio, managed through a series of discrete holding companies, had outperformed most hedge funds. All while my family thought I was just grading papers in my tiny office. As I discussed case studies, I could see Jessica's professional composure cracking. Every time I mentioned a major corporation or business leader, her expression flickered. She knew these were clients who paid astronomical fees for my advice. Companies where her husband was merely a mid-level partner. "For your first assignment," I announced near the end of class, "you'll analyze the Henderson merger." Jessica's head snapped up. The Henderson deal, David's supposed crowning achievement. "You'll find that while the public face of the merger was handled by Sterling and Brooks Investment, the actual strategy was developed by an anonymous consulting firm." I allowed myself a small smile. The same firm that has shaped 7 of the decade's largest corporate restructurings. My phone buzzed discreetly, another message from Goldman Sachs, probably increasing their consulting offer again. I ignored it, just as I'd ignored their previous attempts to discover the identity behind Mitchell Strategy Group's success. "Class dismissed," I announced. "Except for Mrs. Brooks. A word, please." The other students filed out, several shooting curious glances at Jessica, who remained frozen in her seat. When the hall emptied, she finally spoke. "Sarah, I had no idea." Clearly. I sat on the edge of my desk, letting her see the full effect of my carefully concealed power suit. "Tell me, Jessica, does my office still remind you of your staff's break room?" She flushed deep red. "About that, I was just following David's lead?" "Yes, I noticed. Just as I've noticed every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time my brother used me as a cautionary tale about choosing the wrong career path. But you're..." She gestured helplessly at the lecture hall, the building that bore my family name, the subtle signals of wealth and influence I no longer bothered to hide from her. "You're Dr. Mitchell. The Dr. Mitchell. David says even his firm's CEO can't get a meeting with you. Ironic, isn't it?" I smiled. While David was bragging about his corner office, I was deciding whether his firm would survive the next market shift. That Henderson deal he's so proud of? I designed it. The strategy he presented as his own? My work. Jessica's professional mask cracked completely. "Oh God. The birthday party last month, when David mocked your shabby academics car." While I was deciding whether to accept his firm's desperate plea for consultation. Yes, that was particularly amusing. I stood, gathering my materials. "Now about your position in this class." "Please," she whispered, "I can withdraw. Take another section. Anything." "Withdraw? Why would I want that?" "No, Jessica, you're exactly where you need to be. In fact, I insist you stay. Consider it an educational opportunity. For both you and David." Her hands twisted nervously in her designer skirt. "You're going to tell him?" "Tell him? Well, that would be too direct. Instead, I'm going to let him discover it slowly, piece by piece. Starting with your first assignment, a detailed analysis of how his brilliant Henderson strategy was actually developed." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Jessica, do try to maintain better composure in future classes. In real business, as you're about to learn, Emotional control is everything. As I walked through the halls of my building, passing the discreet plaques acknowledging my anonymous donations, I smiled thinking about the dinner conversation that awaited Jessica and David tonight. My phone buzzed again, not Goldman Sachs this time, but my investment manager. Dr. Mitchell, Sterling & Brooks stock dropped 15% on rumors about the Henderson strategy leak. Should we proceed with the acquisition plan? I thought about David's smug face at dinner, his casual cruelty masked as familial teasing. Yes, I replied. Proceed as discussed. And make sure the press release emphasizes the role of academic expertise in the takeover. The following weeks unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of revelation. I watched from my executive suite as David's carefully constructed world began to unravel, one thread at a time. Jessica's first paper on the Henderson deal landed on my desk with trembling observations about the strategic similarities between the official documentation and Mitchell Strategy Group's known methodologies. I gave her an A, along with a detailed commentary that I knew would find its way to David's attention. Dr. Mitchell, my secretary interrupted my grading. Mr. Brooks from Sterling & Brooks is here. Without an appointment. Again. I glanced at my surveillance monitor, seeing David pacing in the waiting area, his usual confident demeanor notably absent. His Armani suit looked slightly rumpled, unusual for someone so obsessed with appearances. Send him in, I said, carefully arranging myself behind my desk, not the small office he knew about, but my true workspace, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and views of the city that dwarfed his 47th floor perspective. David burst in, then stopped short, his eyes widening as he took in the space. The elegant furnishings, the wall of awards, and most importantly, the familiar strategy diagrams from his Henderson presentation displayed on my interactive screens. Sarah. His voice cracked slightly. What is all this? This. I gestured around. This is my tiny office, David. At least one of them. Would you like to see the others? The consulting firm headquarters perhaps? Or maybe my investment group's main operations center. He sank into one of my visitor chairs without being invited, a first. Jessica's been acting strange, keeping her class materials hidden. Then I saw her paper. The Henderson analysis. Ah yes, your wife is quite perceptive when she's not playing the role of corporate trophy, I noted, pulling up his firm's latest stock charts on my screens. She quickly identified the strategic patterns. Tell me, did you ever wonder who actually designed that deal you're so proud of? His face paled. The consulting firm, the anonymous strategist everyone's been trying to identify. That was you? Is me, I corrected. Present tense. Just as I'm the one deciding whether to approve Goldman Sachs' latest attempt to acquire your struggling firm. Struggling. He straightened defensively. We're one of the top. You were. I cut him off, displaying more charts. Until rumors started circulating about the true origin of your strategies. Amazing how quickly clients lose confidence when they realize their star performer has been taking credit for someone else's work. David's hands gripped the armrests. Why didn't you ever say anything? All those dinners, all those times you mocked my career, belittled my choices, used me as an example of failure. I stood, walking to the window. He gave me the perfect cover, David. While you were bragging about corner offices, I was building an empire. While you were flaunting your wealth, I was multiplying mine in ways you can't imagine. The Mitchell School of Business, he whispered, realization dawning. The anonymous donor. Grandmother would have appreciated the irony, I smiled. She always said true power doesn't need to announce itself. Speaking of announcements, have you seen today's financial news? I pulled up the breaking headlines. Mitchell Strategy Group acquires controlling interest in Sterling & Brooks, academic excellence meets corporate finance. David's face went from pale to ashen. You bought my firm? Your former firm, I corrected. The board voted this morning. They seemed quite eager to accept my offer, especially after reviewing the origin of your supposed strategic innovations. He stood up shakily. Sarah, please. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you told the Henderson Group not to waste time talking to that academic sister of yours. Or when you advised Jessica to network with actual business people instead of her dusty professor? My phone buzzed, Jessica's name appearing on the screen. Ah, perfect timing. Your wife has just submitted her latest assignment, a fascinating analysis of hostile takeovers disguised as friendly acquisitions. She's showing remarkable insight into the subject. David ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it for the first time I could remember. What do you want? Money? A public apology? Want? I laughed softly. David, you still don't understand. I don't want anything from you. I already have everything, including your company, your reputation, and your wife's genuine respect. Though I must admit, watching you learn the truth has been intellectually satisfying. My secretary appeared at the door. Dr. Mitchell, the board of Sterling and Brooks is ready for your first address as majority owner. Thank you. I turned to David. You can see yourself out. Oh, and don't worry about your position with the firm. I'm sure we can find you a small office somewhere. After all, isn't that where all the real work happens? He left without another word, his expensive shoes scuffing slightly on my polished floors. Through my security cameras, I watched him pass Jessica in the hallway. She was heading to my advanced seminar on corporate acquisitions, clutching a case study that I knew detailed his company's downfall. My phone buzzed again, Goldman Sachs making another desperate attempt to partner with Mitchell Strategy Group. I declined the call, instead pulling up the latest draft of my new book, Silent Success: How Quiet Power Outmaneuvers Loud Privilege. The dedication page read, "To my brother who taught me that the smallest offices often contain the biggest opportunities." In the distance I could see David's prized corner office building. By tomorrow his name would be removed from the door. By next week the entire firm would be restructured under my leadership. And at the next family dinner, when they asked about my tiny university office, I would simply smile and say it suits my needs perfectly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't in showing your power, but in letting others discover it themselves, one devastating revelation at a time. After all, as I taught in my very first lesson, the lesson Jessica now understood all too well, true power operates quietly behind the scenes, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And in the end, my brother's mockery had given me something priceless. The satisfaction of watching him learn in the most painful way possible that sometimes the smallest office contains the biggest surprises.